The 2023 NHL offseason is officially in the books as training camps opened up today league-wide, and although it is just day one, as players, coaches, and general managers have began speaking with the media, we already have some pretty big stories coming out of the first day of training camp. So in this video, we are going to go over some of those stories. I'll break them down for you guys and of course give you all my thoughts. But before we do that, if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button. We're getting super close to 75,000. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and start the video off with what is definitely the biggest story and the biggest piece of news coming out of day one of training camp so far, and that is in regards to Tampa Bay Lightning captain Steven Stamkos. So as I'm sure most of you know, Steven Stamkos is heading into the final year of his contract. He is set to become an unrestricted free agent in the summer of 2024, and if Stamkos actually makes it that far without an extension, despite the fact that he will be 34 years old next summer, he's still set to be one of the best players available on the market. That being said, it doesn't sound like Steven Stamkos wants anything to do with unrestricted free agency. He had some things to say earlier this morning in regards to an extension and how negotiations have went between him and the Lightning. Stamkos said, "To be honest, I've been disappointed in the lack of talk in that regard. So it was something that I expressed at the end of last year that I wanted to get something done before training camp." He was then asked if he's okay to discuss during the season, and Stamkos said, "I'm ready whenever." So I guess that was something that I didn't see coming, but it is what it is. Like I stated at the end of last year too, I would love to extend and play here and finish up my career here, but that's out of my hands. I can't write a contract for myself. So definitely some interesting comments made by Steven Stamkos, and it's a little bit surprising. Stamkos is basically saying that he wanted to have an extension done with Tampa Bay before training camp, but the Lightning didn't even reach out in regards to an extension. Now, of course, Tampa Bay Lightning GM Julien BriseBois would later be asked about Stamkos' comments and about the whole Stamkos contract situation, and BriseBois had a lot to say. I'll just read a little tidbit here for you guys that I think sums it up well. "Steven has mentioned publicly to me that he wants to spend his entire career with the Lightning. I think it would be great for our organization if Steven could spend his entire career with the Lightning. That's in everyone's best interest. At the same time, it's not just about Steven playing his entire career in Tampa, it's about Steven playing his entire career in Tampa and the Lightning remaining a legitimate Stanley Cup contender year in and year out for the remainder of his tenure as a player on the club. Steven and I share a common goal of bringing the cup back to Tampa. That's our objective. In order for us to do that in future years, we're going to have to spend our cap dollars as wisely as possible." So to me, it just sounds like Julien BriseBois is really taking a patient approach to this because he is in a little bit of a difficult spot. Like I mentioned, Stamkos will be turning 34 years old this season. He's coming off of a season in which he put up 84 points in 81 games. He is still a big-time offensive producer, but you would have to imagine that drop-off in production and performance is going to come over these next couple of years when he gets into, the 35 and 36-year-old range. So is it in the Lightning's best interest to sign Stamkos to an extension that will probably have to be in the range of 4 or 5 years? And I mean, his cap hit right now is $8.5 million. Based on his point production over the last couple of seasons, he's probably going to be asking for something at least similar to that, maybe a little bit under, like 7.5. It should be very interesting to follow this storyline throughout the season. It sounds like Tampa Bay plans on playing out the season without an extension in place for Stamkos, and then, talk extension when the season's over, which in my opinion is also a bit of a risk. Just like it would be a risk signing Stamkos to a lucrative long-term extension, if you wait to negotiate until the season is over, depending how far you go in the playoffs, there isn't a whole lot of time from when these Stanley Cup finals end to when free agency opens. So you run the risk of Stamkos just walking straight to unrestricted free agency if the negotiations don't go well in that time period. I'm very interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this whole situation, especially if you're a fan of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Sound off down below in the comments. With all this coming out on just the first day of training camp, I definitely feel like it adds another element of intrigue to Tampa Bay and Steven Stamkos' season, so should be pretty fun to follow. Moving on now to the next bit of news, the Boston Bruins have named Brad Marchand the franchise's 27th captain. Not a big surprise here at all. With Patrice Bergeron retiring, I feel like there was only 3 options that would have made sense to replace him as captain, one of which is of course Brad Marchand, who it ended up being. And then I also feel like you could have made a case for it to be David Pastrnak or Charlie McAvoy, but Brad Marchand is really the heart and soul of that team. Love him or hate him, should make a fantastic captain, and I think this was a great decision made by the Bruins. Next up, we have a couple of stories coming out of Toronto, the first being really unfortunate, but it's something that we all expected. Jake Muzzin is not going to play this season, so he's going to be out for the entire year. Played just 4 games this past season, and I think at this point it would be safe to assume there's a chance he may never play in the NHL again, which is extremely unfortunate. Neck and spine injuries and things like that are definitely no joke, so wishing Jake Muzzin all the best. The next bit of news we have coming out of Toronto, this is from Pierre LeBrun. Sheldon Keefe says William Nylander will start camp at center tomorrow. Obviously was drafted as a center, but hasn't done too much during his time here in Toronto. Keefe wants to look at it now in a more meaningful way. Sheldon Keefe would also say that William Nylander is fully on board and fully comfortable playing the center position. When I first saw this reported, I quote tweeted it immediately and said, how many times are the Leafs going to try this and just have it blow up in their face? I mean, maybe I'll be completely wrong here, and Nylander has a fantastic camp in preseason as a center and does really well this year at that position for the Maple Leafs, but I just don't think he's a center. I don't really understand the decision to try to transition him to the center position at this point in his career, coming off of a season in which he scored 40 goals and put up 87 points on the wing. You already have Austin Matthews and John Tavares as your 1-2 punch down the middle. Do you really want somebody as talented and as productive as William Nylander playing a third line center role? When I made that tweet that I previously mentioned, Eliminator, who I know has been a subscriber of the channel for a long time, said tank his numbers this year to try and get him cheaper. Might be the thought process here if they actually go forward with it, which is some absolutely galaxy brain thinking there. Could you imagine if that was actually the Leafs thought process there? And I mean, it would make a little bit of sense, as Nylander would probably not be able to come close to replicating his numbers from this past season if he was playing third line center. Probably my favorite thing that I've seen anybody say about Nylander playing center during training camp was from Steve Dangle, and he said, hey, at least they're doing it now and not in an elimination game, which is so true. So we'll see if this whole Nylander experiment at the center position sticks. Like I mentioned, I'm not expecting it to, but I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again, so we'll see what happens. But that is pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about and give you guys my thoughts on in today's video. If you guys enjoyed this and you want to see more videos like this, throughout training camp and preseason as we inch closer and closer to the start of the regular season, then let me know that you enjoyed down below by leaving a comment, leaving a like on the video. I do also want to mention that I made a post on the community tab last night asking you guys for video ideas, things that you want to see over these next couple of weeks, because I am kind of struggling for ideas right now. I'm just so ready for the season to start. So if you have any video suggestions, things you want to see, you can go ahead and head over to the community tab and leave a comment on that post, or even just leave a comment under this video. Either one works, I guess. And last but not least, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 75,000. I also have a second channel. The link to that is down below at the top of the description. I plan on making quick clip videos reviewing every Red Wings game this season, among other things. So if you guys like the content you see over here and you want to see shorter videos and just more content from me in general, go ahead and subscribe over there, and I'll talk to you all soon.